the stuff I've been given and where my life is today, there's no possible way that I could say I am where I am today and who I am today because of me. I'm the source and the author of my life. It's kind of like, wow, not even close.
Welcome to the Workmatters Podcast, where you will hear real-life stories from everyday people in different roles and industries share the challenges of practically integrating their faith and work. Each week together, we'll wrestle over what God is doing in us and with us while we work. So let's dive in. Well, we are so excited to have Steve Graves back with us. If you missed it before, we had him on a previous episode. We were talking about faith and work and the decades-long investment that he's had in that and the intersection of our faith and work. I highly encourage you to go back and listen to that episode. But again, we're excited to have him. Steve Graves is an author. He's a business owner. He's written over 20 books. He's invested in companies. He's invested in leaders. And today we are really excited to talk to him about his latest book, which is Radical Stewardship, Partnering with the Master in Everyday Life. But before we get to that, I have something for you.
Okay.
So one of the books that you've written before this was called The Gospel Goes to Work, right? The Gospel Goes to Work. Great book. I mean, this is a powerful book. It's a good book for you to get started in your faith and work and understand that intersection we've talked about before as well. Well, Steve gave me a bunch of copies, donated copies, and I did something really fun with those, Steve. I just got back from Africa and took your book to Africa. We did a faith and work conference down there for over 200 pastors and over another 200 or so business leaders. Took your books down there, gave them away to these folks as a gift. And this is a picture of all of them thanking you. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh,
you
wow.
can show that
Wow.
that to them, thanking you. And they're actually, even though it's a still photo, they are actually saying, thank you, Steve Graves, for your book.
They're holding up the book. Well, thank you so much.
Isn't that neat?
That's fantastic.
That's really cool.
Tons of fun.
So when you see that picture and you think about that, I've already gotten WhatsApp messages of them reading your book and sending quotes to me already.
That's awesome.
But when you see that and you think of that, how does it make you feel?
It makes me feel great. I love it. Send me the pic.
I will. I'll send you the pic.
That'd be awesome.
I'll send you the pic.
Tons of fun. Thank you.
Well, we're excited to talk about your latest book. Here it is right here. Radical Stewardship, Partnering with the Master in Everyday Life. Yeah. So let's dive into this.
Steve, tell us, why was it so important for you to write this book now?
Wow. Wonderful question. Thanks for the intro and thanks for letting me be here.
Absolutely.
Tons of fun for me. I've been reading tons about stewardship for a long time and actually wrote a little monograph probably 5 to 10 years ago where I made myself collect some thoughts around the parable itself. But I just kept growing and thinking and developing my thinking around the concept and the parable itself. And have you ever heard the phrase practical atheist? Practical atheist is a term that was used years ago in my early generations, in my early days of faith journey, where practical atheist was somebody who basically would they would answer all the questions correctly on a piece of paper, but when it came time for them to bend their thinking and their belief system into everyday life, there was no difference in the way they would live their life and somebody who didn't believe in God. And so they would say on a piece of paper, this is my belief system. Okay, I believe in God, and God brings hope, and God brings peace, and God transforms, and He changes, and He makes a difference, and all that. But then when it came time for them to live it out over here, there was no difference. And so a term was created by somebody. I don't even know who did it. I ought to find out. But the term practical atheist, where somebody practically lives out as if they are somebody who didn't believe in God. So hold that in your mind here for a second.
Okay.
I began to notice, to your question, I began to notice more and more times that people would talk about stewardship, but the way they would talk about it would be like in the wrong way, or they would not be applying it correctly. Or somebody would take their inheritance or a bunch of money or whatever, or their relationships or their massive life experiences, and the long and the short of it, they would be acting like the third steward, not the first two stewards. Now, just as a quick reminder, the parable, there's the master walks down the hill, paraphrasing, and he basically says, hey, 3 of the people that work for me, and we have no reason to think he only had 3. He picked out 3 as an example to talk about the parable. He said, hey, worker 1, worker 2, worker 3, come over here. I got something I need you to do. I'm going off on a journey, and while I'm gone, I need you to manage, work, lead, do exactly like you think I would do. And by the way, you've been watching me for years, so you know exactly how I would perform. I need you to do it like I would do it. And so he goes off and he gives he puts five into one box, 2 to another, and 1 to the other. And so the guy that got 5 multiplied it to 10. The guy that got 2 multiplied it to 4. And the guy that got 1 was so scared and nervous that he buried it. And he came back with 1. The master comes back and says, and he gives them names. I laughingly in my book say, the name of the first steward is well done, here's more. Okay. The steward 2 is well done. And the third steward is you're done. Okay. But in the practical atheist is so many people, we think we're being steward 1 or steward 2. But the reality is, we actually are steward 3. We're burying and we're clutching and grasping and holding and not taking risk and not trying to grow with stuff. And so I just kind of got to the place that I said, let's give this whole parable another scrub. And so that's kind of where I came out with writing, deciding to write the book out.
Now, the subtitle of the book is Partnering with the Master in Everyday Life.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you to partner with the Master?
Well, that's great, because it embedded in the parable is the biggest outcome of the parable. Again, we misunderstand the parable a lot of places. Like, for example, did steward 1 and 2 get the well done because they doubled it?
Right.
Well, that's not what happened. They got the well done because they performed like the master would perform. And because of that, they got the master says, come in and enjoy my joy.
Wow.
Come get some of my joy.
Yeah.
And so they were able to partner with and walk alongside the way of the master, the way the master does life. And so the book tries to take the concept of stewardship and blow it out beyond just money and blow it out into our everyday life, so that anything that we happen to have been allocated from the master, any of my superpowers, any of my assets, any of my life experiences, my relationships, anything that the master put into my box or into my bag and then said, here, Steve, I need you to treat this the way I would treat it if I was here running the farm. That's the way I need you to treat your relationships, your life experiences, your family, anything that's in your bag, and then that's where the entire parable kind of blew out.
Yeah.
So, I've read the parable and I've probably even taught on it and things of that nature. I always struggled with, and a lot of people do, the harshness of the master towards the third one. You just kind of go, hey, I thought he did a good thing. I thought he was trying to protect your investment.
Yeah.
But that's not it at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you read it, like, give your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, there's by the way, this is a really controversial parable, and there's a lot of stuff that it's easy to misunderstand or misinterpret. And then there's still a lot of stuff I don't really understand either. And I hope I'm not misinterpreting, but the reason it seems that the master was so harsh with the third steward was not necessarily it's not with what he did, it's why he did what he did. He was operating out of fear. He wasn't trusting in the master. He wasn't trying to emulate what the master did, and he missed the whole concept of stewardship. I happen to believe that the concept of stewardship embedded in the parable is there's 4 sequential key term, sequential. There's 4 sequential steps that go along with stewardship. It's step 1 is recognizing, me being able to look into the bag and say, oh, look, this is what the master's giving me, and being comfortable, being excited, being motivated, being settled, me not being able to always be looking over in Keisha's bag and, well, dang, I sure wish, why didn't I get those gifts? Why, it's like me looking in my bag and saying, got them, good, I'm okay with my 3 things. I got them, I'm good. And oh, by the way, my 3 things came from the master. My 3 things didn't come from, I got up earlier than everybody else, I'm a harder worker, I'm smarter, my last name is Walton, whatever it is. It came from, my source is the master. So it all starts with recognizing, and then the second step sequentially is transferring. Transferring, the book opens with a 1-liner, 2-liners that say, you own nothing, but you're responsible for everything you have. Okay. Now, that's really hard because we think we own everything, but we own nothing. I don't own anything more than the 3 guys who the master walked down and said, hey, worker 1, 2, and 3, come over here and let me give you some stuff.
Right.
And they got it because the master said, I'm going on a trip and I need you to take care of it. So transferring is the second step where I officially transfer back whatever's in my bag back to the owner, the master. And the easiest way to think about it is if you've ever bought a car or bought a house and you literally had to go to closing where you literally transferred over something to somebody else. You signed it on the back and said, right, there you go, it's all yours. I hope the roof holds for you, or whatever. And so, recognizing, transferring, and this is where the line is. Many Christians have no problem, and they kind of generally get that one. But it's the stuff below that that's the second 2 that really take it and blow out the parable. The third implied sequential step is multiplying. It's taking risk and growing. I happen to believe that the first 2 stewards knew exactly what the master would do. And as soon as the master took off and hit over the hill, they took whatever assets they had, they went to the market and said, let's start working. Let's start trying to grow something, make something happen. Because when the master comes back, he doesn't want 5. He wants me to have tried to do something more than 5. And by the way, every oil well doesn't gush oil.
Right.
It can't be well done because you actually doubled. Every risk taker is going to lose some stuff. So it goes back to the third person. The third steward did not perform and steward the way the master would have done it. And so he never entered into the joy, the master's joy. He couldn't because he was entered into his own sense of fear. He lived in that world of can't lose it, so let me get real world. The fourth one is answering or accounting for how you did. So recognizing, transferring, multiplying, and counting. Let me jump real quick and show you an example. The number years ago, I had a friend of mine who was leading a nonprofit, a global nonprofit, and he was flying to a big city, and he called me one night and he said, hey, I'm going to so-and-so city tomorrow, and I'm meeting with a guy, and I knew the guy, and he knew the guy, and this guy was a billionaire. And he said, I'm going to go down there, and he said, I'm going to ask for our whole budget. And I said, well, that's a pretty big number, and let's just say that number was north of 25 or 50 million. Okay. Big organization. Yeah. And he said, I'm going to go. He said, the guy's got billions of dollars. How can he not? And I said, well, I hope it works, but I wouldn't be planning on it. And he said, why? He said, the guy's got billions. And I said, he does, but I said, there's a good chance that he has given his billions to a bunch of accountants and tax people, and he's transferred the stewardship of his wealth to somebody else. And basically, they've given him an envelope system. That's bigger than my envelope system and yours, but they've given him an envelope system, and he can't give out. He can only give out part of the interest, not his principal. And the guy, I remember the guy said, well, that can't be right. And I said, let me know how it goes. And sure enough, he went to this city, and I think he picked up, I don't know, let's call it $1 million or something, which is a tip for a billionaire.
Right.
Now, I would argue that many people who have lots of wealth have taken their wealth, and instead of living like the steward 1 or steward 2, we practically are living like steward 3.
Oh, wow.
Now, I'm not saying you don't hire tax people, and I'm not saying that there's not investment wisdom and resources, but if it's your wealth, okay, then you do with it what you think God's calling you to do, and let other people help you figure it out correctly. Not let somebody say, "Don't you squander granddaddy's money. Don't you better be a good steward of that." And you got $10 million in the bank, and you can only give $111 a year to charities or something.
Right.
So practical atheist is the idea that I'm not living out the full embodiment of steward 1 and steward 2. I might think I am, but miscorrectly, I'm not. And so I think stewardship could use a significant overhaul in the day-to-day life that we live.
I'd like to recognize and thank Simmons Foods, Inc. for being our exclusive sponsor for this season of the Workmatters Podcast. Their generosity is making this new season of meaningful content and inspiring guests possible. We hope people are encouraged to see work as a place where God shapes them more into His image, in their work, at their work, and through their work. Simmons Foods, Inc. is a family-owned and led company based in Siloam Springs, Arkansas, supplying poultry, pet, and animal nutrition products to customers in all 50 states and more than 40 countries around the world. Please visit simmonsfoods.com to learn more about our wonderful sponsor. Thank you.
What are some of the traps that you've observed that keep us in that third steward mentality?
Yeah. Well, really, really good, insightful question. A lot of it has to do with exactly me becoming and me operating like the third steward. We know the third steward had a misunderstanding of who God really was, who the master really was, and what the master really wanted from that encounter. The master, anyway, so I can be overcome with fear. I can here's a better one. There's two ditches that usually I can fall into, that I've got to be careful of and stay in the middle of the highway system with stewardship. Ditch 1 is where I'm going to grasp and clutch and just tightly hold on to whatever I've gotten, and I'm gonna hold on to it because it's mine. And it's no different than my 6 grandkids at the beach this last summer when we went from it was an angelic scene and everything was fantastic. And it was like, this is like heaven. And then 2 seconds later, they're screaming, mine, mine, mine. And there's only one bucket in the sand. And I'm like, where did these aliens come from? Like, are you kidding me right now? And how many times as an adult will I do that with my holdings, my relationships, my experiences, my dreams, my imagination, and so I can overgrasp something and just clutch it and squeeze it too tightly versus hands open. It's God's anyway. Okay, so that's one ditch. The other ditch is where I can kind of thoughtlessly and mindlessly, frivolously it might be too harsh of a word, but I can thoughtlessly just kind of spend my way through life. Now, not just spending my money. A lot of people, they thoughtlessly spend their relationships. If God's giving you a lot of relationships, are you really growing and developing and multiplying a relationship in a way that it has thickness and depth and integrity and authenticity and transparency more today than it did 3 years ago? Or are we just spending our way through that?
Right.
And just checking it off? That's stewardship. If it's in my bag, I'm supposed to multiply it. I'm supposed to take risk and grow it. I'm supposed to take chances and take 5 and turn it to 10, And so mindlessly, thoughtlessly, just spending my way through my experiences, where I just kind of get a little lazy or whatever. And so the assumption is still growing stuff and multiplying things. So don't overly grasp it and clutch it, and then don't just spend your way through it.
Yeah. I love that. I'm going to read you a quote from your book, and I want to know, how's it linked?
Don't ask me what page it's on.
Yeah, I know, I'm not. Yeah, and if you can guess the page, you win the prize.
I'm scared.
No, but what I want you to do is okay, how does it hit you when you hear it read to you? So biblical stewardship is the deep conviction that all I have is on loan from God, and my job is to grow everything given to me with vibrant faith, sustained inner joy, and unselfishness.
Yeah, it makes me pause quickly um, from Holy Spirit conviction of so many parts of that I'm not doing. And even though I read the book, I mean, like I don't live with deep conviction about all the stuff that followed the word conviction. Sometimes, often,
Right.
often I just, I don't. I've got to work too hard at stuff because it's not deeply embedded in who I am. So it makes me pause a little bit, and wonder how hypocritical I am as the author of writing something.
Right. Right. But I appreciate that, by the way, because a lot of times when you're reading a book and you think the author that wrote it, you think, oh, he is cornered the market on this. He knows what he's doing.
Anybody that knows me knows I've not cornered the market on anything I've written. I'm just writing out of hobby and calling.
Out of hobby and calling. I love that. I think about my kids, the idea of stewardship for them. TikTok's a big thing. They have access to seeing everyone else's gifts.
Yeah.
So that when they look in their bag, kind of like you did with Keisha earlier, they look over in the other bag and say, well, I really want those gifts.
Right.
How do we engage that with them? How do we pull them back?
That is a great modern real world application of what we're talking about. Until a person slows down life long enough and becomes captive to the audience of one, the master, the giver of all gifts. Until I slow down long enough and I look in the bag and I wrestle hard enough with, doggone it, I really wanted to be the CEO. I wanted to be like a really big entrepreneur that made gazillions of dollars and was able to give away a lot of money or whatever. But until I can come to grips with what the master gave me, which, by the way, in the text says he gave each one what he thought was the right allocation for them.
Oh, wow.
This is not some, Jesus walking down the hill just slinging gifts. I mean, it was like I'm stopping at Keisha and I'm saying, okay, girl, bam, 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 bam. That's you now. Go get it. Here we go. And so there's some thoughtfulness. And so until I slow down long enough to wrestle with why I have what I have and how that makes up my identity and my life and my calling and my fulfillment in life and my dreams and imagination, and then somehow get comfortable enough that I'm not other things, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And just get settled enough that that's okay and learn how to cheer on other people and applaud other people for things that they have. But a lot of it goes back to the source. If I think the stuff I have was actually a fruit or byproduct from my work ethic or from my tenacity or whatever, and I'm not saying don't work hard, man. I'm telling you, I'm a hardworking machine. I grew up in fiercely independent. And so, but the stuff I've been given and where my life is today, there's no possible way that I could say I am where I am today and who I am today because of me. I'm the source and the author of my life. It's kind of like, wow, not even close. So to help a younger generation have to deal with that, and part of it will be just, learning how not to compare myself with other people for anything.
Right.
Just get comfortable with who I am and what I've been given.
I love that. Well, we have time for one more question. Keisha, what you got?
I do have a question.
Come on.
Hey, so earlier you talked about how, like, hey, I'm not the expert on any of this. I'm still in process. And I'm curious of how writing this book helps to form you spiritually.
Yeah, I'm actually wrestling with a number of things right now personally, trying to apply the book, apply stewardship at this season in my life, because I mapped out my career, my work career one time for a bunch of friends, and I'm actually in the 6.0 season of my work career. Might sound funny, but that's it. And the season I'm in is the harvest season, the legacy season, the transfer season. So I've got some words that go along with each season of my career, looking back at my careers. And so I'm trying to apply and make sure I'm not being the third steward, more even accidentally. Not ever saying I don't wake up in the morning and say, please let me be the third steward, but like accidentally, am I taking enough risk? I'm part of an organization called Praxis. I'm on the board, and our CEO, Dave Blanchard, who's a phenomenal leader in person, a couple of years ago at our annual Imagination Summit, rolled out a talk on taking a re-risking for a redemptive quest. Re-risking for some big redemptive quest that would make a difference in our world for generations to come. And you kind of like, okay, wow. Let me chew on that for a few minutes.
Right.
Like, that's not just give my money to a broker and make sure that I'm not overspent. Like, what am I doing to re-risk for generations to come?
Wow.
With all the things God put in my bag. So Keisha, I'm kind of wrestling. There's a little bit of a Jacob wrestling match going on with me and God on just how do I actually go into this season and live out this season as steward 1 or at least steward 2 and not steward 3 accidentally.
Wow. Thank you, Steve. We always end our time with some rapid fire questions.
Let's try 'em.
So here we go.
Let's try them.
All right, here we go. We got a few for you. Catch and release or cook it up?
Oh, catch and release every time.
Okay. Someone you learned a lot from without them knowing?
I learned a lot from, both these guys probably know. Howard Hendricks was a very formidable professor. I actually did get to know him pretty well, and he was a mentor, but the proportion of influence and learning that he had on me was nothing even close to what he probably had any idea.
Yeah. He was incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
What do you often notice that other people miss?
Oh, well, I have no idea. I sometimes will see a potential longer-term opportunity. I can spot, not necessarily just a blue sky idea, but I can kind of sniff out and say, but that's probably my age because I've seen so many things fail for so many years.
Well, I love that. Time, talent, or treasure?
Talent.
Talent. Why'd you pick talent?
I don't know, because it's kind of probably been because in my life I've tried to, early on, I tried to really figure out what I'm great at and what God really did put in my bag. That's been a kind of a lifetime journey and pursuit for me. Like I always wanted to be in my career lane by the time I was 35. Now that sounds pretty old for a parent with a college student saying, what are you doing with your life? Please get going and get serious. But, I took every aptitude test you could take. I had a lot of mentors. And so I really wanted to figure out, if I could, what God put in my bag. And then I get to wrestle with, am I comfortable with that, and all the stuff we got through talking about. So
I love that. So people want to get your book. They want to learn more about you. They want to connect with you. Where did they go?
Yeah, there's two sites you can go to. One is my personal site, Stephen R. Graves with a PH, STEPHEN, rgraves.com. And that'll take you to all the books and all my blogs and my weekly stuff and all that. So that's one site. The other site is our coaching site, Cornerstone Co., cornerstoneco.com. And that's the site that holds all of our coaching practices, our cohorts, our different coaches, and all the work that we do with businesses and organizations.
That's awesome. Steve, thank you again. Thank you for wrestling.
Yeah.
Right? And then putting your wrestling out there for us. We're better for it. So we appreciate you coming on.
Love being here. An honor that you guys let me to come and hang out with you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining the Workmatters Podcast. Make sure you subscribe to get notifications when we launch new episodes. Start living out your faith through your work in practical ways by starting the Workmatters Institute online today. You can do this and learn more about upcoming forums, webinars, and conferences by visiting workmatters.org.